The summons buzzed my nightstand at 3:17 a.m. like a trapped fly. AC-1, Acheron priority. It cut through every barrier. Sleep, already thin, vanished. 20 minutes later, I was back inside the Acheron complex. That familiar, heavy feeling settled over me as the airlock hissed and scanners did their work. The constant low thrum of the place pressed in. Even deserted at that hour, the polished halls didn't feel empty. They felt watched. My security escort, usually stone-faced, was wired tight. "They're all reporting it now, Doc," he whispered as we moved through dim corridors towards the president's wing. "Not just POTUS. SecDef, the speaker, Graves. Like a damn plague hit him. His knuckles were white on his gun." The president looked like a ghost haunting his own office. The usual power was gone, replaced by something brittle and scared. Deep purple bruises hung under his bloodshot eyes. His hands shook slightly on the desk. "Elias," he rasped, voice raw. "It's back. Worse." I kept my professional mask on, opening my tablet. "Describe it again, sir. Everything." His gaze went right through me. Nothingness, a void, not dark, not light, just empty. And the silence, Elias, it presses down, like drowning. He shuddered hard. Then it comes. The Watcher. Just a shape against the nothing, shifting. Can't focus on it. But I feel it. Hungry. Feeding on. He choked. Swallowed. On the anger. The fear. Mine. Everyone's. He locked eyes with me, pupils huge. "It knows me, Elias. It feeds on me." Classic signs of severe stress, racing heart, tremors, jumpiness. But the fact his nightmare matched the others exactly, that crawled under my skin. "Stress hits hard, sir. Shared anxieties can sometimes—" He slammed a fist on the desk, sudden fury flaring. "Don't give me shared anxieties, doctor. This isn't nerves. It's real. It's feeding." The anger vanished as fast as it came, leaving him slumped and ashamed. "Just make it stop." Leaving the wing later, my notes full of sleep deprivation and paranoia, I passed 2 top aides near a soundproof door. They were locked in a vicious, hissed argument. Their polished masks were cracked, suspicion rolling off them. One shot me a sharp, hateful look before they split apart. The hallway felt colder after they left. The quiet felt heavier, thicker than usual. Mass hysteria, I told myself. Fear spreading like a virus under crazy pressure. I needed data, sleep logs. Protocol would handle this. It had to. The other idea, that the president was haunted by a nightmare feeding on hate, was impossible. But as the heavy door sealed shut behind me, that image of the shifting shape stayed, refusing to be neatly filed away. The next morning, the complex felt like a bomb about to go off. My neat explanation, mass hysteria, just stress, was crumbling under the sheer weight of dread hanging in the air. Protocol said, document everything. So I set up sessions with the other main victims, Defense Secretary Aris Thorne and Opposition Leader Helen Graves. Just gathering data, I told myself. Find patterns, fix it. Thorne arrived first. He wasn't fragile like the president. He was wired tight, buzzing with a brittle energy. His eyes darted around my office like he expected enemies in the corners. He shoved a heavily encrypted tablet at me before I could speak. "Sleep logs," he rasped, his voice rough. 3 weeks. 0 REM sleep since it started. He wouldn't look at me. "Same damn thing, Vance. Every time. That empty place. The awful silence. And it. He wouldn't say the name, wouldn't describe the watcher. His fist clenched white on the chair arm. It's a leak. Someone's feeding my security briefings out. That's how they're doing it. Find the leak, stop the dream. His paranoia wasn't vague fear. It was a target. Traitors, not phantoms. Helen Graves was worse. Her usual sharp political shell was shattered. Underneath was pure, terrified rage. She described the void, the silence, the watcher, her voice shaking with fury that felt completely wrong. "It's on purpose," she hissed, leaning in. "Psychological warfare. Thorne's people, they've weaponized this, projecting it into our heads, trying to break us before the vote." The accusation hung there, poisonous and crazy. "Dream sabotage," she called it. The shared horror wasn't proof of something awful happening to everyone. It was proof the other side was attacking her. The precision froze my blood. Void. Silence. The watcher. The feeling of being watched. Of something feeding. Not variations from stressed minds, but a carbon copy nightmare haunting sworn enemies. Mass hysteria doesn't clone nightmares that perfectly. My clinical calm started cracking. That night, back in my sterile apartment that felt suddenly unsafe, I dug deep. My clearance got me into the weird stuff. Dusty fringed journals, old Cold War files about psychic nonsense, folklore databases full of superstition. The terms were strange. Discordant souls. The resonance of strife. Bits and pieces talked about things that lived on human conflict, growing fat on the echoes of hate. One crumbling book, translated from who knows where, mentioned shadows that walk when brothers war. It sounded insane. But it fit. The paranoia getting worse. The identical dreams. The way arguments in the halls seemed to leave a nasty taste in the air. Walking back into the complex the next afternoon felt like entering a mausoleum. The usual electronic hum seemed quieter. The lights cast longer, deeper shadows. I was cutting through one of those long, windowless service corridors, usually empty, always too quiet, heading back to my office after wading through Thorne's security paranoia reports. The air was cold, dead still. Then movement. Down at the far end, where the hall turned sharp left. Not a person. A shape. Too tall, impossibly thin, stretched out. A patch of darkness that peeled away from the wall. It didn't walk. It darted. A silent, jagged blur, vanishing around the corner before my eyes could even make sense of it. I stopped dead. My heart slammed against my ribs. The silence wasn't just quiet, it was thick, pressing down on me. All my rational explanations died right then. Thorne's jumpiness? Real. Graves's poisonous blame? Real. That crazy folklore? Real. That impossible shadow wasn't tired eyes. It was proof. Something was here, feeding, and it was starting to show itself. That hallway shadow rewired me. Forget rational explanations. They felt like childish toys against the icy dread now living in my gut. Sleep became the enemy. I ran on bitter coffee and a grim determination to understand this plague. The nightmares weren't just shared, they were a gauge. I started matching spikes in their terror against the political calendar. The Ambassador Chen hearing was a bloodbath. Accusations flew like glass in the Senate, pundits screaming on every screen. That night, Thorne reported the watcher felt closer, colder, like ice forming inside my skull. Next morning, Graves looked ghostly on the secure link. "The silence. It's suffocating," she whispered, "like drowning in tar." The timing wasn't coincidence. It was chilling. Then came the executive order, the one clamping down on data sharing. The backlash was instant and volcanic. The complex itself felt charged. I ended up in the observation gallery overlooking a closed-door session with the President, Thorne, and Graves. It wasn't strategy, it was war. Voices climbed, faces turned red. Thorne slammed the table, shouting about security. Graves shot back, venomous, calling it tyranny. That's when I felt it. Not just anger, a physical thing, a low, sickening thrum in the air, like the deepest note of some huge, awful engine kicking on. It vibrated in my teeth, pressed on my eardrums, greasy, unclean. And it pulsed hardest when their voices peaked, when the hatred between them crackled brightest. Resonance. The folklore wasn't just a story. It was a dinner bell. Something was feeding. Later, deep in the sub-level archives under topaz locks, I found it. Project Ether, decades old, pages mostly blacked out, but the fragments. Ambient emotional resonance, harvest potential, amplification via societal fracture, cascading discord as primary catalyst, containment failure inevitable. My hands shook holding the flimsy paper. They knew, or guessed, and buried it. The Watcher wasn't just snacking on chaos, it was farming it, planting the very divisions that made stopping it impossible. The hollowness that followed was worse than fear. I wandered the lower corridors near the old vents, the cold dead air mocking the fever above. I leaned against a freezing bulkhead, trying to catch my breath. Down here, the silence was usually total. A tomb. Then it wasn't. A sound leaked from a nearby air vent grate. Not machinery. Voices. Warped, stretched thin, overlapping. One voice tight with suspicion. "Security protocols compromised. Deliberate sabotage." Thorne's clipped tone, twisted. Then another sharp, dripping poison. "Reckless. Power grab. Dangerous precedent." Graves. Arguing. But this wasn't live. This was old fury, echoing through the metal guts of the complex. Twisted. Louder. Bleed through. Not shadows anymore, but the poison itself, seeping into the silence. The cold wasn't just in the air now. It was deep in my bones. Unity. It was the only answer, and completely, terrifyingly impossible. I had to make them see, before the fracture swallowed us all. The chill from the vent whispers clung to me like grease long after the warped voices faded. Unity. That impossible answer. It chewed at my gut as I paced my sterile office. The hum of the air conditioning suddenly sounded like the low growl of the thing in the void. Project Aether's warnings screamed in my head. They had to know. All of them. Today. Getting the emergency meeting felt like walking through a live minefield. Security Chief Rostova eyed me with pure suspicion when I used my topaz clearance to demand the President, Thorne, and Graves in a secure room. Immediately. The complex felt wrong. Staff moved like scared ghosts, flinching at noises. The air tasted like old pennies. They gathered in the high-security conference room, codename Haven, soundproofed, shielded, a sterile bubble. President Cartwright looked wrecked, shadows like bruises under his eyes. Thorne sat stiff as a board, eyes darting like he expected a knife in the back. Graves radiated pure ice, staring at the table, refusing to even glance at Thorn. The hate between them pressed against the walls, thick and sour. "Thank you for coming," I started, my voice too loud in the quiet. "What I tell you will sound crazy, but the proof is there, and if I'm right, we're all finished." I laid it out. The identical nightmares, the Watcher, their growing paranoia feeding off their fights. I described that awful thrum during the Chen hearing, the twisted voices in the vents replaying their own poison. Finally, I mentioned Project Ether, the redacted bits about emotional resonance and societal fracture. Silence. Then Thorn snorted. "Resonance? Fracture? Doctor, are you on something? This sounds like a bad trip." "Fantasy?" Graves's voice cracked like a whip. "He's describing exactly what's happening, but blaming us? How neat. Smells like one of Thorn's dirty tricks, psychological ops. Accusing me?" Thorn surged forward, face red. "After your party's constant leaks trying to gut national security? You're the problem." "Enough." Cartwright slammed his hand down, but it was too late. The old poison flared hot. I felt it again. That sickening vibration in the air, getting thicker. The lights in Haven flickered wildly. Not a surge. A presence. Then the silence hit. Not quiet. A total, suffocating dead stop. The air turned icy. All three leaders froze, eyes wide with the same raw terror. They weren't looking at each other. They were staring into the same empty hole. Cartwright gasped, clawing his throat. Thorn flinched back, a choked sound escaping him. Graves went white, mouth open in a silent scream. They were seeing it, right here, right now. The void opened in the room, and the Watcher. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It had shape, a tall, black humanoid figure, radiating cold that burned deep. Where a head should be, two tiny points of cold light glowed like dead stars. Hunger poured off it, pulling at our fear. Then it vanished. Sound crashed back. Gasps, my own hammering heart. The three leaders slumped, shaking, soaked in sweat, faces showing a shared horror that wiped away their hate just for a second. "It feeds on this," I choked out. "You're fighting your hate. It's making it real. Strong enough to step out of the dream. We need a truce. Now, a joint statement. Anything to show we're together, to weaken it before it's too late." Cartwright nodded weakly, still trembling. Thorn looked hollowed out, his bluster gone. Graves met my eyes, real fear pushing past her hate. "Yes," she whispered. "A truce. Temporary. For our minds." Thorn swallowed hard. "Agreed. A stop. For now." For one fragile heartbeat, hope sparked. Then Thorn's eyes narrowed, flicking to Graves. "But this doesn't clear your party for whipping up this panic with your reckless bills." Graves's face snapped shut. "Panic? Your department's power grab started it, Thorn. Your spy games." The truce shattered before it began. The accusations flew uglier than ever. The vibration surged back, a physical pressure on my ears, stronger, hungrier. I saw it this time, a ripple in the air above the table, like heat haze but freezing. Shadows in the corners seemed to twist and stretch for a split second. The silence between their shouts felt thick and heavy, like wading through mud. They couldn't do it. Even after seeing that, feeling it feed right off them, they couldn't stop. The split was too deep. The Watcher had won. And outside Haven's shielded walls, the shadows got darker, waiting. The failure in Haven clung to me like a physical chill as I walked back to my office. The air itself felt thicker, colder, like the complex had sucked up all that anger and turned it solid overnight. News alerts blinked on my secure screen. The president pushing a drastic new order, opposition leader Graves screaming tyranny and vowing to fight it tooth and nail. The split wasn't just bad now. It was turning to stone, perfect fuel for the fire. The cold wasn't just in my head anymore, it sank into my bones, a damp, unnatural chill the heaters couldn't touch. Then the whispers started. Not garbled echoes of old fights, but clear, icy words slipped into the vent hum or the rustle of papers. Divide. Feed. Soon. Once in the shiny elevator doors I saw it. Not my tired face, but a deeper blackness hovering just behind me, gone when I blinked. It was happening. The bleed-through wasn't just hints anymore. It was the Watcher pushing hard against the thinning wall between our world and wherever it was. All the research, the creepy old stories, Project Aether's warnings, they screamed one thing. It was almost here. Unity was dead. My job, my rules, my clearance, all useless now. Only one crazy move left. Late in my office, buried in suffocating quiet, I worked. Hacking the firewalls felt weirdly easy, like the system was rotting. I gathered it all, the nightmare reports, the leader's crazy logs, my Project Aether notes, how it matched the political fights, my own creepy experiences. Anonymity was a flimsy shield, but it was all I had. Hands shaking, I sent the files to every independent news place I could find. Let everyone see, I begged silently. Maybe knowing the monster's real will scare them into sticking together. The second the send finished, the lights overhead went wild. They flickered madly, throwing jagged shadows that twisted like snakes. Then, total blackout. And a silence so deep, so complete, it swallowed everything. No hum, no buzz, just the void from the nightmare right here in my office. The air turned thick and icy, burning my lungs. My breath fogged in the sudden freeze. I stared at my dead monitor screen. My reflection wasn't there. Instead, filling the black glass, stood the Watcher, no longer a shadow, fully formed. A tall, thin shape made of pure void black, radiating bitter cold. Where a face should be, only two tiny points of distant, icy light stared back. Not eyes, hungry holes. It didn't just watch. It moved. A long, too thin arm, blacker than the dark around it, reached out from the reflection. Not towards the glass, towards me, through it. The screen surface rippled like dark water as the figure started stepping forward into my world. The silence crushed down, absolute. It was here. And this was just the start.